Hello there and good afternoon, you wonderful people. Yes, Nigel Farage's reform has chalked up yet another win. But I had geared myself up for a much heralded Nigel Farage Reform UK press conference, readying myself to see one or more current Tory MPs being unveiled as they cross the floor to Reform UK, just like in UKIP all those years ago. But all I got was Zia Yusuf and a former Tory MP in the form of Andrea Jenkins being named as the party's candidate for the newly formed position as the Mayor of Lincolnshire, where the election takes place next May with all the other local elections. But Nigel does love his connection with Tory politicians, doesn't he? Anyway, Nigel did take the opportunity to have a pop at the Tories for the 2023 legal migration figures that came out this morning. Now, just before Nigel's press conference, one of his former colleagues, Ben Habib, took to social media with his own very interesting message, something that we'll address on this channel in a later video. Now, I wonder what Richard has to say about all of this. Richard.
Hello. Okay. Sorry, a little minor technical difficulty then. Right. Okay. Now, is the press conference over yet? Okay. Look, this is good news for Reform. Okay, who are the only game in town at the moment when it comes to ending the removing of the uniparty of Labour and Tories at the next general election. But that was a bit underwhelming. I mean, the whole thing was, I thought, like yourself, I was very excited about what could be coming up. I mean, we were going to see some hard hitters. We were going to see Suella Braverman crossing over to Reform. That would have been wonderful, but didn't happen. And I just thought it was a strange time to announce this when the mayoral elections for, is it Leicestershire or is it Lincolnshire, isn't it? Lincolnshire, I think. Yeah. They're not until May next year. And I thought the timing, it's a bit soon. But look, I get why they did this, because the press conference served two purposes. It was clearly a move to push a former Tory minister into a more prominent position within the party to help further legitimise Reform as a political entity and consolidate its current position, and to add another credible spokesperson to the party. I mean, right now, all we're seeing really is Lee Anderson, Nigel Farage, occasionally Richard Tice when he's not putting his foot in it. And that's about it. There's not too much of the others sort of being pushed forward. But, Dame Andrea Jenkins, I was going to say Dame Edna Everidge then. So, Dame Andrea Jenkins, she does come across very well. And of course, this will encourage more Tory MPs and prominent Tory members and prominent former Tory MPs to jump ship to Reform, seeing as she is a former Tory minister herself, granted not in a very prominent position. She was a minor, what was she? Parliamentary Under Secretary of State for Skills, whatever that is. But yeah.
Are you denigrating a minister's job there, old chap?
Sorry. Yeah, I know. Okay. But, this might be enough to give a few Tories a nudge, but, over to Reform. But the second thing I did notice, I was a little uncomfortable with it. It was Zia Yusuf at the start. Obviously, Richard Tice has done this before when he was, was Richard Tice? He was party chairman, wasn't he, for a while? Yeah. We've seen him doing this before, but I didn't see Ben Habib doing it so much. He did do it, but I don't know. I just get the feeling that, rather an uncomfortable one, that Zia Yusuf is being lined up to be the next leader after Nigel. And I don't think many Reform voters will be very happy with that. But yeah, I'm not too sure. Anyway, as I said, we've got some big news later with what's happened with Ben Habib today. Yeah. And there's some quite important ramifications that could take place because of Ben's leaving Reform. Maybe little clues into what's going on by what he said at the pledge launch as well. So we don't know. Let's wait and see. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether Reform UK are sort of waiting, sort of using Andrew Jenkins as some sort of nudge factor for some. Maybe they're in talks with wavering MPs, Tory MPs, maybe, or even Labour MPs. Look, we've got this person. Why don't you take the plunge?
Very
Otherwise,
good point.
it just seems like they could have waited, because he's talking about having a whole slate of councillors by the end of the week or next week or something. Why didn't he join this all together into a really big thing? I don't know. It just seems a little bit, just a bit of a damp squib, considering all the way it was sort of, I don't know, trailed. It just seemed like it was going to be a massive announcement, and I find it was, it's just not quite there for some reason. That's just me.
Well, the other side of it is as well, how do Reform voters feel about more Tories just flooding Reform? How do they feel? In the comment section now, I'll ask if there's some Reform voters out there. How do you feel about more Conservatives joining the ranks of Reform? How do you feel about that? Personally, I find it a little strange. I mean, it was Ben Habib, funny enough, who said that he didn't want lots of Tories defecting across. They wanted the Reform to be its own individual party, its own thing, its own entity.
Yeah.
And that's a very good point. Let's not forget, Lee Anderson's great, but at the same time, he is a former Tory. Then again, I think he's also a former Labour.
Labour, yeah.
Yeah, he's a bit of an unknown quantity, is our Lee Anderson, but there we go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, here's one comment here from Old Man and Guitar. It's good if they bring voters with them. Yeah, but how many voters do former Tory ministers bring with them? That's the question. I mean, it depends on the Tory minister. If it's Suella Braverman, then yes, it's going to bring a boatload over. But what if it was Jeremy Hunt?
I would actually. The people of this country are so used to voting by the colour of the rosette. Absolutely. And just think of the number of people that have defected or become independent and tried to stand as independents. Even though they've been very good MPs individually, they still get absolutely swamped by the votes for their replacement in the party, because people vote on a party basis. Yes, there are people who have done it, usually because they have a very, very high profile, possibly outside of politics as well. I don't know. But it's that sort of thing. Most people, how many people do you think out there even know who their MP actually is, judging by the few people that actually voted in this last election? So I don't know. It's all to play for. Don't get me wrong. And if Reform get this right, then fine. They'll get this right. But I just wonder, as you say, by filling their ranks with former Tories, when the Tories themselves as a party have been completely and utterly rejected by the electorate, is that not going to be an own goal? Wouldn't it be better to go out and find fresh new talent out there?
Yes.
I don't know. That's just me.
Look at what Trump's doing. Trump right now is building his government on people who weren't even politicians, half of them. It's incredible. He's bringing in Elon Musk, for instance. It's amazing what he's doing. So there's a good comment here by Humpty Dumpty. I'm a Reform member. I want nothing to do with any Tory. I didn't want Anderson. A lot of people still feel like that. There's a lot of opinions going, quite strong opinions regarding any former Tory joining Reform. Yes, it's some quite interesting comments here. Again, James, now Reform is just another branch of the Tory party.
I don't know about that one yet.
It's a strange one.
I mean, as JP's networking channel says, the bigger news was the 100,000 members. Now, that's a good result. Don't get me wrong, that's a very good result. Just look at what UKIP did with 46,000 members at its height. So what could Reform do with 100,000 members. However, that is a question we'll be answering when we talk about Ben Habib later. So
Yes.
we'll be going into that. We won't go into it now, but we'll go into it later. Yeah.
Great commentary from Karma. I'll stick with reform. I don't want I don't want a party to split the vote. Yeah, that's a very valid point. Splitting the vote is very dangerous right now because, let's face it, reform are polling at 20%. Yeah. Are they what all of us want? Do they represent everything that we believe in right now? For me, no. They don't represent everything that I believe in right now. Far from it. However, they're a damn sight better than what we've got with the Uni Party, the current Uni Party. So if there's an election tomorrow, yes, I'll be voting reform. Probably supporting UKIP, though, as a member, even possibly. I don't know. I'm a little bit... I don't have a political home as such at the moment, but I know which way I'd vote. And that'd be voting. And I think that's a very important thing moving forward, Jeff, in leading up to the next election, that unification might mean, look, I'm really behind X, Y, and Z party, whatever party, but I'm still going to vote for the one that's going to probably deliver. But then again, if the party that's really going to deliver totally turns its back on us, then you've got another scenario to battle with. So, a lot to think about on this.
Oh, there is, and before people start saying, "Oh, just everybody back reform," or you're splitting the vote. I mean, would you back reform if it went just totally Tory? And
yes,
and this is the sort of thing we've got to. Our job is to keep a party that we can back on the straight and narrow, and we've got to keep them on the straight and narrow. Otherwise, it becomes them telling us what's going on and telling the general population how things are going to be. And that's how the Tories and Labour and the Lib Dems and the Greens have been doing it for decades. If we want something new, it's the people saying what they want and the government doing what the people wants, not what the government wants. And this is the massive problem we have. And it's us. We need to have these conversations and keep teasing it through until we channel a party down the line we want it to go down.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, Christine Parkinson says, well, that's me cancelling my Reform membership. I'm with Ben. Now, this is going to be a thing going forward, I think. When we talk about it later today, you'll see why.
Yeah. Good comment here. I will vote Reform, but I will be moving over to UKIP. There are some good people in Reform, but it's not a I think it's meant to say democracy there. Apparently that is being changed, that it will be more democratic in its structure, Reform. But let's wait and see, because right now I can see a lot of influence from Zia Youssef, who is, I think, putting a lot of money into the party, or has done. And I just want to know where this guy has come from. I'm sorry. I
just suddenly appeared on the scheme.
Yeah.
On the scene.
Very strange.
Yeah. Those who vote UKIP will allow Uniparty back into power. Well, yes, but no one owes anyone. No one can demand your vote. They have to deliver. And that's the whole point.
Yes. Oh, they do have to. Reform do have to deliver. They really do. If they don't, let's just see the direction travel. We've got a few years yet. It'll probably be a good idea to continue with, especially in the elections in May, looking at Reform. But things can change. Things can change very quickly in politics. I mean, I'd be saying right now, personally, I'd be saying, vote Reform right the way through the council elections. But there's a huge but that comes with this. We've got a little while yet. It'd be foolish to just, wave one flag at the moment.
Yeah. Best Black makes a good point. At least Nick, that I'm assuming is Nick Tenconi, goes and faces the traitors of Britain as.
Oh yes,
but
yes.
He is not shy of going and talking directly to the people involved.
Oh no, I watched his video from yesterday or 2 days ago, and he's just going straight up there. He's quite confrontational with it, and which is probably what's needed. Maybe there's no time for wallflowers in this day and age. We're in a very serious situation in this country. And Nick Tenconi, fair play to him. He's going, totally a very brave man. He's not caring. He's going straight in there. He reminds me, in some ways, he's more in your face than Tommy, in his heyday, going wide up, saying, no, that's it, we're going straight in. Nick's doing exactly the same, but with a megaphone, and a lot of respect for him in this. But we'll see how he is in a longer and larger, broader context as a party leader.
Yeah. Now, one of the comments which passed me by, and I can't put it up on the screen now, was talking about, isn't it strange that there's been no Labour defections? The reason there's been no Labour defections right now is because they got a massive majority and they're quite happy sat there getting their pay. And all the people who are hardcore Labour are quite happy with that. So we're not going to see anything change until we start seeing them lose by-elections and council seats. That'll be when the questions start being asked of the leadership, and that's when Labour MPs might start getting a bit jittery when they see actually that all the support they gave to other people was misplaced, because they should have been giving their support to ordinary people on the street, the people that they are still branding as the far right. And that's when they'll start waking up and maybe joining Reform, I don't know, or any other party outside of Labour.
It's the same situation. Do you really want former Labour MPs crossing the floor? MPs crossing the floor to Reform. Why would you want that? Why? Why? Clearly, they didn't have the courage of their convictions to back Reform in the first place. They stood specifically as Labour MPs, as Tory MPs. They know what they've gotten into. Oh dear, their political parties aren't doing very well. Oh, quickly, let's jump ship then. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's called self-interest. That is nothing but self-interest.
Yeah, if they're backing a party today, why not keep backing it? That's a good point. I'm a great believer in that. If you're an MP and you are elected under a party banner or as an independent, whichever, it doesn't matter. If you then go from being an independent to join a new party, that should trigger a by-election. And if you swap parties, it should trigger a by-election automatically, as far as I'm concerned. I don't care that the rules are that we voted for the the individual MP. So whatever they do, we have voted for them. But we voted for them on a promise of them being associated with a certain entity. So I think that should trigger a by-election, in my view.
Yeah, it's like saying, well, so a prime minister, could they swap political parties? Could Keir Starmer join the Liberal Democrats, for instance?
Yeah, but he'd stop being prime minister the moment he did, though, because it's the majority party that provides the prime minister.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it is. Jason Giorgio says, these days, traditional Labour are seen as far right. Yes, I think they are, actually, but they don't realise it yet. They don't realise the traditional sort of mainstream Labour voters are just to the left of centre. They don't realise they're the targets as much as the Tories are.
Yes. I mean, I did read somewhere that it was, people don't realise that Tony Benn himself, I believe, was quite culturally conservative in a lot of respects.
Yes.
I know that he had some involvement. I believe it was was it Radio Caroline, the shutting down of that and pirate radio stations. He wasn't having any of that. Oh no.
I went to one or two of his. He sort of did those sit down talks in theatres and chatting to people, and he came across as a very, very honest and straightforward sort of guy. But in my eyes, just a bit naive. That was all. I thought, yeah, in a perfect world, mate, but this isn't a perfect world by any stretch of the imagination. But I did like him. I had a lot of time for him.
I quite liked Michael Foot. There was a lot to like about Michael Foot. I mean, don't forget, both Michael Foot and Tony Benn were anti-EU. They were completely racist.
Richard, is that where you got your dress code from?
Look at him chuckling away there. Yeah, okay. Yeah, but no, I miss old Labour. I mean, even if I don't politically, especially on certain aspects, agree with everything that they believed in, at least they had some kind of patriotic decency about them.
Yeah.
And at least the Jews were treated quite well under them previously.
Yeah.
And
Well, I
now
keep
it's become the
saying,
anti-Semitism party.
yeah, I keep saying that in the old days, you could always guarantee that the mainstream political parties, whether they were left or right, actually believed in the UK and worked for what
Yes.
they saw as the betterment of the UK and the people in it. To try and make us wealthier as individuals and trying to make us freer as individuals. Nowadays, it's completely the opposite. They hate the UK. They want to reduce our freedoms. They want to remove our money. They want to reduce our ability to even heat ourselves or eat or go where we want or say what we want. These people are not nice people.
No, they're not. But isn't it strange though? I think that we're having these conversations about reform and whether there should be defections from other political parties into it. I do agree with what Ben Habib previously said, which I have to reiterate, is that reform should be standing on its own merit and finding those people who are passionate about Britain within the ranks of the ordinary people of Britain. We don't need to go to the ranks of career politicians to recruit. I find that a little distasteful, but I can see why they do it at the same time. It's a quick fix, really, isn't it? And they've got a general election coming up soon. They just want to get as many people over as possible.
Yeah.
Let's face it, reform and Farage's ideology is birthed in old conservatism. That's where it comes from. But old conservatism doesn't necessarily relate to the current Tory party. But there must be some crossover.
Yes, I understand where you're coming from. Yes. Anyway, here's a good one. People are allowed to change their opinion. Yes, they are. Of course they are.
Yeah.
Except us, the people. We have to still be completely net zero and completely woke. We are not allowed to change that opinion, because if we state the opposing opinion, we might be arrested. So opinion, free speech. Yeah.
I think the more I think about the pledge, the more I see the significance of it. And this is very important.
Remember, people, if you haven't signed the pledge, thepledge.org.uk, read it and go, well, actually, this makes common sense, and we're not doing what it says in the pledge. We need to, so I'm going to sign it. That's why I did.
Yeah, I think that the significance of it cannot be underplayed now, because we should basically, if we're asking ourselves who we're going to vote for, okay, let's vote for the party that signs up to the pledge fully signs up to the pledge.
Now that would be a game changer.
Live up to that standard, if it does not live up to that standard, do not vote for it, regardless of who the political party is. So over to you, Nigel. Really, genuinely, over to you, Zia Youssef. You need to take a look at the pledge and sign up to it. If you don't, why not? What is it that's so abhorrent about a very decent set of principles that makes you recoil at the thought of it? Or is it because it might be associating you with Tommy Robinson? Is that what it is? Oh, okay, right, fine.
Have I missed something here? What's with all the Farage negativity all of a sudden? By Goose. Right. If you just slavishly follow a personality, never questioning what they do, never pointing out the flaws, you end up with a tyranny, I can assure you.
Yes.
What you've got to do is you've got to question, and then you come, in a democracy, you come to a considered view and you support someone knowing that on a 55 to 45% sort of basis, you believe in the majority of what that person's saying. But you have got to be aware of what the criticisms are, what the failures are. Otherwise, you're just being a fan. You're just following a pop group or a football team. Listen, football teams, great example. The managers take a slating when they get it wrong, don't they? But people do still follow the team. So you get the idea.
Absolutely.
This is the sort of thing. Yeah.
Sorry, Bluebell, comment by Bluebell. I can see Zia Youssef leading the party one day. That's exactly what I said at the start. It does feel like he's been primed for that position, which I'm a little uncomfortable with. But no, look, it's like this. If there's a general election tomorrow, I'm personally going to be voting for reform. Still going to be doing it. Might not be perfect. It might not be. Might not be representing everything that I believe in. Yeah, I'm hearing the underplaying now of our Judeo-Christian heritage by Farage, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm not too happy with that. I'd rather be voting for a political party that signs up the pledge, which it doesn't just acknowledge our Judeo-Christian heritage, but treasures it and values it. And that's the important bit, I think, for a lot of us, is that we do. Look, we've got to hold reform to account. You've got to hold their feet to the coals. Otherwise, they can go off and do anything. Don't forget, these people are living down, their lives are down in Westminster now. Okay? The Westminster bubble is an echo chamber. It is a thing. Doesn't matter if you're on the right of politics or the left, you're still going to be exposed to that political bubble. And you need people to, not just people like ourselves, but there are other political commentators and new media individuals out there who will analyze this stuff and give you a proper perspective, a different perspective to that which Westminster will provide you via the mainstream media.
Yeah. Val Brooker says, I've signed it. I'm assuming you mean the pledge, for what it's worth, seeing as I'm never going to be an MP. I will not, and I'm assuming there's meant to be the word vote in there, I will not vote for anyone who hasn't signed it. And I think that's the way we should be going. The pledge just lays out this is a sort of the British way from years and years ago up to now. If you want to continue this, sign up to the pledge, and we will force the political debate down that route, instead of everybody saying, oh no, anyone can do what they like, they can come and bring all their conflicts with them and just make it all part of our society, which is what's happening right now. Anyway, so, sorry, someone's put in here, Inman wants us to sign the pledge, but he refuses to sign the petition. Well, yeah, the reason that maybe I haven't talked to him, maybe he thinks that the actual petition itself, when it gets debated in Westminster Hall and not actually in the House of Commons, as I pointed out this morning, it doesn't have any power. All it is just a statement. And we had this with the Brexit debate. Do you remember that, when they had the anti-Brexit referendum, the rejoin referendum, whatever it was, I don't know, had millions of views. And my instant view was, well, when it gets to over 17.4 million, then maybe we can have a conversation. But it never got anywhere near that. And so we have to see things on both sides. It wouldn't have mattered even if it had got to 20 million. A petition is not a referendum. So, it's, no. I don't know. I'll have to ask him. Anyway, I think we've got to the end of that one. And just to say that from my point of view, great to see they got a new senior person on their team. But I was waiting there with bated breath, hoping, I was wondering if we would see all these big names that are currently in the House of Commons come across, and that didn't materialize. So, when it looks like you're over-promising and then you're sort of under-delivering, it just looked a bit of a damp squib to me. That's just my personal opinion on the day. It's not a criticism of Reform as a party. That's all it is. That's my observation anyway.
Well, it wasn't bad news. It certainly wasn't bad news. It is a win for Reform. It was good news for Reform. It's good news for anybody who wants to see the Uniparty collapse. That's what you can read from this. I mean, there's so many points of division. Sorry, I'm just reading through the comments. There are points of division here between lots of people commenting, those who support UKIP, those who support Reform, those who support both, technically, like myself, or have sympathies with both, I should say. But the points of divisions are quite stark here, especially within Reform. I mean, for me, the real point of division is Nigel Farage doesn't want mass deportations. He doesn't want to do it, okay? Even though his friend Donald Trump is adamant that that's going to take place in America, he doesn't want it. Okay, Nick Tenconi, mass deportations. Fair enough. Okay, so the trouble is that a lot of the Reform voters want mass deportations. That is a major problem right now. Or is Nigel playing a long game and saying, well, maybe we could introduce those a little bit later on. Let's not go too extreme at the moment. It's a very difficult game the Reform must be playing right now. I have to say, Nigel must be in quite a position of quandary at the same time. He didn't have to throw Tommy under the bus. Neither did Tice have to throw us all under the bus, and neither did Anne Widdecombe have to be so critical of. She shouldn't have come up with what she said basically about Peter Lynch. I thought it was a little distasteful and out of touch with Reform supporters. It's very difficult situation.
Yeah, Nick Tenconi was there yesterday at the funeral.
So, Peter Lynch, yes, indeed he was.
Anyway, it's been great listening to everyone, reading what people have got to say, and just keep talking about it, and we'll get there in the end. But don't forget, don't vote. Sorry, don't forget to vote. If you don't vote, then what you're doing is just allowing the status quo to continue. You've got to vote. And even if it means voting for the monster raving loony party, I'd rather have them in power than the Tories, Labour, Lib Dems, and the Greens, because they're even worse than the monster raving loony party. Anyway,
need to get clever about this. Need to get very clever about how we vote. And do you know what? I never used to believe in it, but even we need to talk about at some point tactical voting as well. Whatever disrupts and breaks the back of the Labour and Lib Dem sort of pact that's out there, and the Tories, something needs to be done. Whoever it is, that's another conversation for later on. That is,
Anyway, I need lunch because I'm a bit late today. So all I'll say is thank you very much for taking part, and it's goodbye from me.
And subscribe, and it's goodbye from him. Goodbye. Off you go.
Goodbye.